What's good, people? We are in WrestleMania week and we are really cooking this year. This is gearing up to be the biggest WrestleMania we've had in ever. This is clearly marked as the biggest WrestleMania ever. It has like 3 main events, maybe even 4 if you're counting women's, and it's stacked with talent, stacked with superstar power, stacked with more celebrities there than we probably had before. I know Lil Wayne will be there this time. Meek Mill may be performing, and you just never know how things are gonna go. We have a night 1 and we have a night 2, and we really don't know what's gonna happen because everything from night 1 dictates what happens on night 2, right? So we don't really know what's gonna happen or what's gonna be our favorite match. But I will tell you, we will rank this WrestleMania once we're done. But all we can do is go off of the last WrestleManias, and to celebrate WrestleMania 40, we're going to go back in time halfway through. 20 years ago, somewhere in between, and we're going to go ahead and rank the last 20 WrestleManias from WrestleMania 20 to current 39. WrestleMania 20 is when I started watching and really keeping up with the WrestleManias anyway. So that's where we're at. We're going to rank them from fire to solid to meh to trash in that order. So let's see what we got. WrestleMania 20, clearly for me, fire. It was the first WrestleMania I ever really just paid attention to or heard of. I think I was like, 10 when that came out. When that WrestleMania came out, my favorite wrestler at the time was Chris Benoit, and he won the World Heavyweight Championship in a triple threat match in the big main event. It was a big WrestleMania. It had pretty much a showcase from Raw and SmackDown, respectively, which would collide the following year. WrestleMania 20 gave us big stars, the crowning of new stars, of stars that have been around but haven't really been main event players like Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, etc. And it also gave us a glimpse of what the future was to hold for the rising stars, like a John Cena, who beat the Big Show for the U.S. title, and we got Randy Orton and Batista, who, as part of Evolution, beat legends The Rock and Mankind. So we got a good glimpse of what we had and what we were gonna have. You had the 2 biggest superstars leaving the company, Brock Lesnar and Goldberg, and Stone Cold refereed that match, which admittedly was terrible, but in hindsight, ended up giving us something much better later on. So WrestleMania 20 was solid, but it was also better than solid because it was stacked and actually featured cruiserweights, unlike so many other WrestleManias didn't. So I give WrestleMania 20 fire. WrestleMania 21, fire. It gave us those same rising stars we saw last year come to life and really be main event players this year. We had Batista beating Triple H in the big main event for the World Heavyweight Championship, and we had John Cena beat JBL for his first WWE Championship. Now, Randy Orton would have won the World Heavyweight Championship in between time from this WrestleMania to the one before, but at this WrestleMania, he went against The Undertaker. He lost, but that is the match that really kicked off the whole streak thing. Undertaker Ben had this win-loss record, but it wasn't really just acknowledged or paid attention to until the legend killer, Randy Orton, came around and challenged that idea. So we had a big match with Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio in his last WrestleMania match. How fitting. He went against his best friend and biggest rival at the show of all shows in his last ever WrestleMania, which was brilliant. And we also birthed the best WrestleMania match to a lot of people, and possibly to me. It might still be my favorite WrestleMania match. It's definitely in my top 5, along with the triple threat with Chris Benoit, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels, which featured Shawn Michaels again, with Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle. This year's WrestleMania was really big on SmackDown versus Raw, especially with the game coming out for SmackDown versus Raw. So it really showed a bunch of SmackDown vs. Raw showcases, and that was the biggest one, which again featured Shawn Michaels. Kurt Angle came out on top, and I was rooting for Kurt Angle because I was a big SmackDown guy, even though he was a heel. WrestleMania 22, I don't remember much from it. I remember trying to like it, but none of the matches on there really just stood out as real game changers to me. I didn't really care for it that much, to be honest. Undertaker went against Mark Henry in a casket match. The main event was John Cena beating Triple H, which at that time it was John Cena's first ever WrestleMania main event. But it was also the time when John Cena finally had the crowd split, where we were getting "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks" chants, because Triple H at that time, even though he was a heel, he was the cool guy. He was the heel that everybody liked. Everybody wanted to be like Triple H. They liked him. He was the cool one, and they were getting sick of superhero John Cena already. So that wasn't a good sign and not a good start. So that's where we got that. Overall, it wasn't that bad, but it wasn't that good. It was a big change in direction, and to me, a step down from the previous WrestleMania, which featured the first ever Money in the Bank ladder match. This year's ladder match for 2006 was pretty odd. It had Ric Flair for some reason. It had Bobby Lashley for some reason. It had Finlay. It wasn't a good combination of guys in this match. So it wasn't trash, but I can't say it was just solid. Biggest part of that for me was Edge versus Mick Foley when that Extreme Rules hardcore match, whatever, which was entirely too short. But that was the best I could get from that. So I'd say a strong meh. WrestleMania 23 was a nice pivot. It kind of gave similar vibes to WrestleMania 21 in the aspect of all these big championships being changed, crowning of new people, and also the establishment of those who've been around. Undertaker and Batista had a very, really good match that was, to me, overlooked. A lot of people don't realize how good the Undertaker-Batista match actually was, but it was good. Triple H missed that WrestleMania because of his injury, and he was supposed to go against John Cena again, but to replace him again was Shawn Michaels. So Shawn Michaels and John Cena had the main event, and that was a pretty good match. John Cena won. This year we had a solid Money in the Bank ladder match with some really good participants. It was really good. It was different. The WWE Championship and the World Heavyweight Championship were good, but this was one of those shows where none of the matches were just brilliant individually. It was just a really good show overall. So they kind of needed each other to bounce off each other to make the show as a whole good. So I'd say this was a solid WrestleMania. WrestleMania 24, barely any recollection of it. Didn't really care for it. It had the retirement of Ric Flair when Shawn Michaels put him out of his misery like "Oh Yella," and that was it. It felt like a very hollow Mania. Not much was going on in it. Very forgetful Mania for me. I don't remember what match John Cena had. It was a very forgetful Mania, but we did get Edge versus Undertaker in the main event, which a lot of people talk about being so great, but I watched it recently, and it wasn't bad, and it was like a good match technically, but I couldn't really get into it too much. Maybe it's because of since it's so old, I don't know, but I can't really say that because there's other matches that are old and just as old, if not older, like the Kurt Angle Shawn Michaels match that I'm captivated by. This one for me just wasn't doing it. So, but it was the best match on the card, so we did get that. And it was interesting fact was Edge was told backstage before the match that he would be ending the Undertaker's streak that night, and Edge strongly refused as he didn't want to be hated by the entire world. So that was interesting. I'd say WrestleMania 24 as a whole was meh. WrestleMania 25, same deal. I'm not gonna get into it. The best thing about it was the Shawn Michaels Undertaker match, which to me, between the two matches, I think that they had, WrestleMania 25, I think that was a really solid match. I think that was their best one. Everything else, don't remember that much. I remember Randy Orton and Triple H fighting, and it was a very stupid stipulation where couldn't get disqualified, couldn't do a count out. It was just dumb. It was dumb. I didn't like it. So meh, strong meh. WrestleMania 26, same deal. Only thing I can really take from it was the rematch with Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. Not much I can really say about it. Batista went against John Cena, which is supposed to be good, supposed to sound great on paper, but wasn't really nothing great. CM Punk fought Rey Mysterio, Triple H fought Sheamus. Edge and Chris Jericho had their blood feud, but not really. It didn't feel like a super feud. It felt like they were kind of forced to go with it, and I don't know. It was a very underwhelming card to me. I couldn't really get into it, but I understood, why they had the matches they did have. So WrestleMania 27 or 26, I'm sorry, man. Now I don't know if it's fair to really judge these WrestleManias based on one or two matches, but I'm really not. I'm really basing them off the shows as a whole. I'm just highlighting the matches that stick out to me. Now, WrestleMania 28, again, another one of those WrestleManias that wasn't just too prominent to me, besides the best match on there to me, which was Triple H versus The Undertaker in this Hell in a Cell, no holds barred, end of an era match, and Shawn Michaels was the special guest referee. That was the best part of the whole show. That should have went on last, but it didn't. But it's one of the best ones because it's one of the best special referee matches I've ever seen, if not the best. You have the best friend of one of the participants who is trying to be fair because there's a quote-unquote good person, that's their gimmick, but they eventually get pushed. And when Undertaker pushed Michaels, after Michaels already had that beef with him for beating him and retiring him, Shawn Michaels just lost it. He just super kicked The Undertaker. The Undertaker flew into Triple H's grasp and put him in a pedigree, and then 1, 2, and Undertaker still kicked out. And Undertaker still won, and they all had a curtain call at the end and walked up the ramp as the end of an era. That was special. That was a really good moment. That's what elevates WrestleMania 28 to be better than what it could have been. Like, now, although I think it should have been more, great matches on the card, including John Cena, Triple H. John Cena, The Rock. That was. It is what it was. It was pretty much Hollywood Hogan versus The Rock back in WrestleMania 18 or whatever. That's pretty much what the aesthetic was. It wasn't this big, masterful classic, but it had enough hype of the two biggest superstars on the planet within the WWE. So that's really all you just needed. Everything else was kind of, I don't know. It didn't really have to be what it was. CM Punk was supposed to main event that with Jericho. They had a great match. Clearly better than The Rock and Cena, but nothing on that card was better than Triple H and Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. So the card itself wasn't bad. It had a bunch of new superstars that were getting their shine, newer superstars. To WrestleMania with Dolph Ziggler and them versus Kofi and them or whatever. However, maybe they were on the same team. I don't remember all that, but I remember that the rest of these big matches made up for the lack of big marquee matches on the WrestleMania 28 card. So, as a whole, I'll say it's solid. WrestleMania 29, let's see, how can I put this? Nothing I remember from WrestleMania 29 makes it great to me. It wasn't a classic WrestleMania. It did have a great Undertaker match with Undertaker versus CM Punk, and to me that was probably the Undertaker's last best actual match at WrestleMania before things just became stale and raw. I actually watched that match recently, and I really did like it. I liked the way it went. We got Rock versus Cena Part 2, which was considerably even less of a draw to me as 28 was. But it was okay. It just wasn't that great to me. This WrestleMania was pretty decent. It did have Fandango beat Chris Jericho, which I didn't see that coming, but he definitely beat Chris Jericho. But we got nothing else from it. Triple H beat the returning Brock Lesnar no holds bar match. Nobody wanted that. Everybody wanted Brock to win because it would make sense for him to win. But he had to pay his dues. He had to pay his dues to the boss over there since he just came back before going on a reign of terror literally the next year. So it considerably makes sense, but that's why it happened that way. 29 was okay, but it definitely could have been better. It was stacked with all these big names, so it wasn't just bad. But it was you can tell it's the beginning of a change for what we were going to see. These people in these lower positions were going to end up being in bigger positions right after. So it was different. It was better. It was getting there. So I'll say it's a solid Mania. WrestleMania 30. Now from 30 on out, nah, I ain't gonna lie, it's still gonna be up and down. I was gonna say it's gonna be up from here, but it's not. It's a weird in between. So WrestleMania 30 was solid to a certain extent, but the only matches I really just cared about were the opening match with Daniel Bryan versus Triple H and the ending match with Daniel Bryan versus Randy Orton and Batista, which to me was considerably underwhelming. I really liked the first match way better than the triple threat. The triple threat was clearly Randy Orton and Batista versus Daniel Bryan because he wasn't supposed to be there. They didn't want him there. Everything else, part of the card, it was okay, but it wasn't really nothing to write home about. WrestleMania 30 was decent at best. Nothing really came from it, not to me. I barely remember too many of the matches. I just remember it being Daniel Bryan's hour, and of course we got Brock Lesnar beating the streak. That was different. We weren't expecting that. Nobody was expecting that, but it was interesting enough to keep things moving. It was a change in the tide of things. We had Daniel Bryan getting his comeuppance. We had Brock Lesnar beating the streak that nobody else could and really becoming that real beast incarnate. We had Cesaro win the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. And besides that, we just had regular small matches that could have been on a regular smaller card. There really wasn't nothing else to it. It was mainly about Daniel Bryan. So that's really much what we got out of that. As far as WrestleMania 31, ended up being a WrestleMania that was better than it should have ever been. We had Sting returning against Triple H, which everybody agreed Sting should have won, but whatever. We're glad to have seen Sting, and he put up a really good match against Triple H. We had Randy Orton versus Seth Rollins in one of the best RKOs I've ever seen. And then, of course, what everybody was talking about was the main event, which was Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. The match that nobody wanted, but we ended up getting it. And it ended up being really good because we thought it was going to be pretty easy, a run-of-the-mill match where the bad guy loses to the good guy. But what we got was Brock Lesnar beating the life out of Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns got like 5% of offense. He was on a 5% battery the whole time. So Roman Reigns was a non-factor for most of the match. It wasn't until Brock Lesnar made a mistake and hit his head against the steel pole where Roman Reigns would take advantage and he would try to be on the offensive and stand a chance. Other than that, he was getting dog walked by Brock Lesnar. And that's what made the match so good because it made you want Roman Reigns to finally beat Brock just because of the way it went. It was Brock was bullying Roman Reigns. But at the end, we got the heist of the century with arguably the best Money in the Bank cash-in to date. Just because of what was to come, how it happened, who it was to, who was involved. That's all what makes it the heist of the century, and that's what makes it, to a lot of people, the biggest Money in the Bank cash-in ever. We had Seth Rollins run down the ramp at lightning speed, stop Roman Reigns, beat him, and he took the title right from him. He took the title right from Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, and he became the WWE champion after losing earlier that night to Randy Orton, which makes it that much sweeter. It was really nice. WrestleMania 32, very underwhelming. There's nothing I can really take from that. WrestleMania 32 is one of those WrestleManias I definitely missed. I wasn't part of. I remember Triple H and Roman Reigns fought, and nobody wanted that either. Everybody was pretty much done with Triple H at that time. So we were looking for something else. We were looking for something to go towards besides Roman Reigns and besides Triple H. We didn't want to see that. We weren't sure about The Undertaker versus Shane McMahon, especially as a rubber match to Undertaker losing to Brock the year before. It wasn't really something people wanted to see, but it happened. Chris Jericho beat AJ Styles for some reason. Brock Lesnar had a throwaway match with Dean Ambrose when it really should have been the match of the night. The only thing I really got from this that was decent, that was better than anything else on this card, was the ladder match for the Intercontinental title, which Zack Ryder beat Sami Zayn, Dolph Ziggler, Kevin Owens, Stardust, a bunch of other people for that title. And this was a time where this year and the year before, they started making a thing out of making ladder matches for the Intercontinental title, because they had stopped making the Money in the Bank ladder match for WrestleMania. So they knew what they were doing. They were trying to bring back that same feeling, but just in a different platform. It was still for something. It just wasn't for the Money in the Bank ladder match, for a Money in the Bank briefcase. So that's what that was about. So 32 was trash. I don't know if I ranked 30 and 31. I think I just talked about it. I might have missed 29. I kind of got ahead of myself. So in case I did, I'll say that 28 was meh. 29 was solid. 30 was solid. 31 was solid-ish. And 32 was just trash. It was trash. There was no way I would go back to watching WrestleMania 32. There's nothing that would make me want to go back and say, hey, let me check out WrestleMania 32. Maybe I was wrong. It was a throwaway card. It was a throwaway pay-per-view. Nobody wanted to see it. It just wasn't good. WrestleMania 33 was where we got the burial of Bray Wyatt by Randy Orton. Never liked that. But we did get Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar in like a 2-minute match. Spamming finishers. It was something that we did actually want to see because it made sense. They were 13 years removed from their initial run when they fought. And this time it made sense because they're older, still jacked, and ready to get it over with. So it was actually nice, action-packed 2-3 minutes. I enjoyed it. I think a lot of people enjoyed it. This time around it was different. So we actually liked it being that way. The Seth Rollins Triple H non-sanctioned match. Again, Triple H involved himself in the card. Not really a big fan of that. A lot of people aren't. The Kevin Owens Chris Jericho match was pretty decent. It was for the U.S. belt. It was supposed to be for the world title, but they took it off of Kevin Owens and gave it to Goldberg, so Goldberg and Brock Lesnar can have their championship match. Otherwise, it would have been KO versus Jericho for the belt. But instead, they got downgraded to the U.S. belt. So, I mean, people can feel how they feel about it. I don't think it was right, but I mean, it wasn't my call either. Dean Ambrose went against Baron Corbin for the Intercontinental title for some reason. The women aren't really highlighted in these WrestleManias until we get later down in the years, because before the last few years, it ain't really just been too good for them. They ain't really, got what they needed to get out of it. They did have a kickoff match with Neville and Austin Aries, which was good. But other than that, this card wasn't really all that. It was very run of the mill. And then we had the burial of The Undertaker and the complete rock bottom, pun intended, of Roman Reigns, since he did defeat The Undertaker and nobody wanted it. It was so bad that the next night on Raw, when Roman came out to talk to the audience, everybody booed him out the building, and the only thing he can say out of his completely predetermined scripted promo was, "It's my yard now." And that's it. That's all you can say. They wouldn't let him talk. They were giving him Dominic Mysterio level nuclear heat. They didn't want him. So WrestleMania 33, to me, in my opinion, it was trash. Didn't like it. It was trash. Now we get to WrestleMania 34, where things start to get real. We get make or break situations where the women are on display, the current stars are becoming the big stars, and Roman Reigns is at a point where he's shoved down our throats in the worst way, and nobody wants it at all. So we're in a very stalemate situation here with WWE, and it would be the year before AEW comes around, but the year when AEW made their presence known. So yeah, this was a pretty complicated situation, but we got some goodness out of it. So WrestleMania 34, we had AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura for the WWE Championship, which should have been match of the night, but it was very underwhelming, especially compared to their previous classics and other promotions. We had Shinsuke lose for some reason. I know AJ Styles was on the cover of the game. I know he was their guy at the moment, but still, I don't agree with that decision. They had Shinsuke turn heel, give AJ Styles a low blow, and continue to follow that trend for months to come, and continue to lose as well. So yeah, the burial of Shinsuke didn't just start last year, people. It started way back then too. We also had Charlotte Flair bury Asuka, where she beat Asuka and broke her undefeated streak. and retained her title. Now, both of these superstars are named Asuka and Shinsuke were both the first Asian Oriental superstars to Japanese superstars to win these Royal Rumbles respectively, and they both lost. So it was a bad waste of time. Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar in the end was dumb. Everybody booed out the gate. It was horrible. I don't remember much from WrestleMania 34, and besides, I believe this is when, and I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is when Daniel Bryan returned to in-ring action and teamed up with Shane McMahon to go against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. So that was pretty okay. And I like the kickoff show with Cedric Alexander against Mustafa Ali for that Cruiserweight belt. 205 Live guys. But other than that, not too much to talk about from WrestleMania 34. Not much I would revisit, honestly. It was a very bad time. I know Nia Jax beat Alexa Bliss. Their storyline was Alexa calling her fat. So, very meh pay-per-view. This pay-per-view was meh. WrestleMania 35. This was a very interesting one because it was the year right before the pandemic. So initially you might have thought it was okay, but the following year, when you saw how bad things got, it made you like WrestleMania 35 more because of it. The best part of WrestleMania 35 was we got Kofi Mania, which he went against Daniel Bryan and finally won the big one. We had some very solid matches on there. WrestleMania 35 was good. I don't remember too much about it besides Kofi Mania because that was the main part of what everybody wanted to see. But I mean, it still had really good matches though. We had Ronda Rousey there, as you know, Ronda Rousey teamed up. Actually, did Ronda Rousey team up with Triple H? I mean, with Kurt Angle, or was that another one? I think that was another WrestleMania. I don't remember, but it was a pretty decent WrestleMania. We had Bobby Lashley versus Finn Balor for Intercontinental title. It was Demon Finn, and Finn won with a power bomb into a coup de grace, which was dope. AJ Styles versus Orton. It was pretty good. Fatal 4-way women's tag match, and then we had the United States title match with Samoa Joe and Rey Mysterio, in which Samoa Joe won in like 2 minutes because Rey Mysterio had got injured, so they had to kind of make it short. Falls Count Anywhere match between Shane McMahon and The Miz. Shane McMahon lost by a technicality, or won by a technicality. It was a lot of decent matches on here. The only difference was, it was pretty much just like WrestleMania 23. Individually, the matches weren't just over the top great, but collectively they came together to make some really good matches. So overall, it was pretty good. It was a solid pay-per-view. I'd go back to watch Kofi Mania, and probably need to go back and watch the kickoff show. They had some pretty good kickoff show matches, but Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre was straight, but it was weird because they still booed Roman Reigns even after coming back from cancer. Triple H and Batista had entirely too long of a match, and Brock Lesnar lost to Seth Rollins in a couple minutes. But the best part about this whole thing was the triple threat match for the women's. It was the Women's Revolution, and Becky Lynch had her coronation as being the double champion by beating Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair for the belts. So that was the best part of it. Other than that, I don't know. This WrestleMania was pretty solid. It was a pretty solid WrestleMania. I'll give you that. I don't know about fire, but it was solid. WrestleMania 36. We all know it's trash. I mean, it was the pandemic year. You couldn't do much. There was no real matches. There was matches, but there were no fans. So the best part about it was the cinematic matches that weren't real. So we ain't about to have to get into that. It was trash. WrestleMania 37, when we came back, was a very odd WrestleMania because it had like random matches, it seems like. Seth Rollins was kind of directionless, but he was still a marquee matchman. So they had Seth Rollins versus Cesaro. And Cesaro got over and won. Nothing really came of it. It was just more of a Cesaro trying to prove himself. Never had a singles match at WrestleMania. Whatever. It was okay. But Drew McIntyre lost to Bobby Lashley clean in the first match of the show for the WWE title, which I thought was weird. But I was glad Bobby won clean, and it just makes sense. I mean, a dominant champion, you know. I felt bad because I wish Drew would have won in front of a crowd like he didn't at the last year's WrestleMania when he won at the pandemic one. Nobody was there, but he lost when he came back. So I felt bad for Drew McIntyre, but it was just a bunch of different matches, man. I don't know. I don't remember much of the card. I remember Sheamus beating Riddle pretty bad with some stiff shots to win the U.S. belt. As far as women's matches, only one I remember, like I just watched Big E versus Apollo Crews for the Intercontinental title in that Nigerian drum fight match. That was pretty good. As far as the women though, it was Rhea Ripley versus Asuka, but I just don't remember. Like, I'm pretty sure Rhea Ripley won, but I don't remember it. I feel like it should have felt more special then. I definitely remember Rhea Ripley's match against Charlotte twice, the year before and then the recent one. But like, this match I just don't remember. I feel like I did at the time, but it was supposed to be special, but it wasn't. Like, Asuka had the belt and Rhea Ripley beat her for it. But it just didn't feel that way. You know what I mean? It wasn't the same. So, I don't know. But Randy Orton beat The Fiend, which was dumb. Bianca Belair beat Sasha Banks. So that was good. She main evented night one of WrestleMania with her, which was the first time two black females ever did it. So that was great. That was probably the best part about night one of WrestleMania then. But Bad Bunny and Damian Priest had a really good match against Miz and Morrison. And yeah, that was pretty much it. They had a bunch of different little things going on. The New Day against AJ and Omos. So it was more so like I'm glad that we're back and we're in front of people. But this would be the first match Roman Reigns would have as the tribal chief or head of the table, whatever, in a triple threat with against Edge, a returning Edge, and Daniel Bryan. And it was a really good triple threat match. No allies, everybody was out for themselves. I dug it, I liked it, it was good. So I say WrestleMania 37 was kind of fire, just a little bit, it was kind of fire. We're gonna give it fire. WrestleMania 38 had Stone Cold against Kevin Owens in the main event of night one. And it had Roman Reigns against Brock Lesnar in the main event of night two. But it also had a returning Cody Rhodes to fight Seth Rollins. Oh, man. And I believe Bianca Belair beat Becky Lynch at that WrestleMania. Did she beat Becky Lynch at 38? Yeah, she did. She beat Becky Lynch at WrestleMania 38. That was a really good match too, by the way. I don't know. It was a really good WrestleMania. Everybody was there. Everybody was involved. Some people say it could have been better. I guess, but it didn't really have to be. I think it was good how it was. Yeah, that was pretty much it. I liked it. It was good. I'd say WrestleMania 38 was fire. It was fire. WrestleMania 39, the most current one, the one from last year, fire, man. Come on. Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns in the main event of night two. Oh, man. Seth Rollins versus Logan Paul. Gunther versus Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, and beating them both. Man, this was a very stacked Mania. Bianca Belair versus Asuka was cool. It wasn't as good as I thought it would be, but it was cool. But it was overall just a great one. Dominic Mysterio versus his dad Ray. Rhea Ripley beating Charlotte Flair in a classic women's match. It was all really, really good. This was really good for the culture. It was good for Mania. Everything about it was dope. So this was a really good Mania. I say it's fire. So now we're at the end of the video, and we are currently going into WrestleMania 40. So that's the one we're going to be streaming this weekend. It's going to be me at WrestleTati. That's at WrestleTati. So Tatiana. And it's No Dirt Sheets. All three of us are streaming WrestleMania 40 this weekend. Make sure you guys tune in. It'll be a hit. It'll be dope. It'll probably be the best WrestleMania ever. We'll do videos on it afterward, and it'll be fun. So don't you tell me what you thought about the ranking system for these WrestleManias. Was it on the dot? Was it pretty straightforward? Did it make sense? Did it match? You tell me in the comments. Either way, I'm DJ, so subscribe to me. I appreciate it. Like the video, I appreciate it. And let me know what you think. And stay tuned for more videos like this. Let's get it. Let's go. Thank you guys. Y'all have a great night. Peace.